Eagle FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud.
Not fraud, it's a scandal. Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You know a person that does not have a capacity to build.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
That's why I'm always telling people in Parliament, let me not take up my Katatura manners.
Right.
Because I grew up in Katatura. And I will not hesitate to tell you off if it is needed to do.
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
My response in terms of Rwanda at 6% is that we had been there before. We've had 6% growth before. It's not something that Namibia has not achieved in the past, and it's not something that Namibia will not be able to achieve in the future.
Eagle FM, the eye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another fantastic, informative, and exciting edition of Ulwazi. I'm joined in studio, as always, by the all-knowing Mr. Francisco NESHILA this morning. And this morning we're going to continue our journey of discussing various towns, various cities across Namibia. And today we're doing the big one, the capital city, and that is the city of Windhoek. Now, do remember, as usual, if you happen to have missed any previous episode of Ulwazi, or you want to replay another edition of Ulwazi, you can head over to our website, that is www.eaglefm.com.na, or download the Eagle FM mobile application that is free to download on the Google Play Store as well as the Apple App Store, and simply go into the podcast section, type in Ulwazi, and you'll be able to take in all the knowledge that we've shared across the previous weeks. Mr. NESHILA, how are you doing this morning?
All is well, man. All is well. It's a wonderful morning. It's sunny side outside, the blue skies. The week looks good, and I think as well to our listeners, it's very brilliant. And yeah, we're always back to give perspective. Yeah, it's exciting.
Exciting times ahead. And those of you that are following us online, make sure to send us any questions you have. If we have time, we will address them live here in studio. So today we're discussing Windhoek, the big one. I'm very excited. I'm eager to hear what the data looks like for Windhoek. But maybe as usual, before we get into the data, maybe we can start with a brief history on Windhoek. How did Windhoek come about?
Yeah, well, before we start on the brief history, it's always good to give some development news in terms of what is happening within the country. Today we are going to extract some notes on the court side of what has happened in the Henties Bay court regarding the valuation roll that has been rejected by the courts. Now, very much so often that a lot of people don't understand that every 5 or so years, any local authority, before they increase their rate and taxes, they need to do a valuation roll. And that valuation roll needs to go through the courts, and when it goes through the courts and approved, then those rate and taxes then becomes effective immediately. Now, when you look at in the past 3 years regarding the valuation roll, so we have been some serious issues that have been rejected. The one is Rehoboth. That's also have been rejected. Then we now have Henties Bay that has also been rejected. We also have a bit of Swakopmund that had to go back for review aspects. Now, when you look at the court issues regarding valuation rolls, it mostly happens on the southern side of the red line, because their communities, they understand the pinch and the impact of rate and taxes on what it has on their bread basket.
Yeah.
But in the northern areas, which is like Shakati or Ndangwa, you hardly have any objections to a valuation roll, meaning that it's not to say that the communities, they don't care, but there's just very little interest in terms of looking at this valuation roll and what impact it could have on your income or over a 5-year span. So if you are paying like 3,000, so that means that on a yearly basis you spend around about 36,000 over 5 years. So you're looking in a close range of easily to 200,000.
Yeah.
Now, most of the communities are not aware of these issues, and equally so, because in the absence of the valuation council, so there's no proper input and onset in terms of a methodology as to how you do a valuation role for any particular town. And this has always been the biggest issue, that we need to get the valuation council on board, and we need to start putting those methodologies into practice. And most of those valuation roles, sometimes they truly go unnoticed. I've also picked up that there was a valuation role that was done in Arandas with very little input from the community. But for some reason it went through. So usually your towns that are really struggling, people are just really fighting life to get by. They really, but for like your Swakopmund, Wolfish Bay and all these towns, there's heavy assets involved. So that means literally that people really pay attention, because it has a significant impact, especially if you are a pensioner or any other working class. So that is purely the news. That's the news on the development in terms of what is happening, and then obviously what has been making headway. Again, the housing article issues are becoming more frequent in social media and all the news platforms now. So it just shows that there is a super concern, and we really need to address this.
Yeah.
Now, really looking at to Windhoek and look at the historical perspective, there's a lot really in terms of, it will take us 2 days really to unpack the history of Windhoek. But predominantly, the well-known name historically, as the Herero called it, Oshomithe, it's Oshomithe is like, it's make reference to hot springs, yeah.
Okay.
And we do have hot springs in Windhoek, somewhere there around the art gallery or local authority. We still have some hot springs that are just producing hot water and all that.
Okay.
So that's generally why it is, because with hot spring there's always mist. So Oshomithe, So, and that is,
I never put that together.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that is probably the key significance in terms of how Windhoek really, it is because of the water that was in the surrounding area, and people then thought they could then make a living out of it. It really went through a lot of transformation and development over the years, and basically, maybe just to give a bit of a perspective, is that previously, when post independence, when the democracy hits, now we needed to build institutions needs offices. So your CBD had very much a lot of apartments. So obviously, to accommodate the new dawn of democracy, Windhoek now had to resort. Now the CBD now had to reconvert itself and create more office spaces, because that's lucrative, because government institutions were looking for space, because at that point in time, the democracy needs to roll, and you need buildings to operate from. So that's purely in a very, very small nutshell of what Windhoek is all about.
Yeah.
But then again, so as I said, we need to look at this data. I really wanted to spare data towards the end of the year. But then again, I feel like our listeners needs to be spoiled.
So, quick question before we get into the data. When we talk about Windhoek, is Windhoek technically Namibia's only city, or rather, what is the definition of a city, and is Windhoek the only one in Namibia?
Yeah, we in the country we do not have a set out definition in terms of what constitute a city. But it's something that we need to look into, and perhaps to start establishing as what a city is all about. but those definitions we don't have them. Yeah, so we don't have them. So that's why some local authorities are fighting for upgrades, is because we do not have proper sets of rules. So we mostly look at economic performance, and for I think what constituted for Windhoek to become a city is because most of your judiciary is here, all the three states of powers are operated from Windhoek.
Okay.
And that's, I think, maybe the decision that it has to be now the capital city. So in other countries, you have an administrative city, you got a judicial city, you got a financial economic city, and legislative city. So that because the arms of the state are distributed across, especially South Africa is one such example. So it has a very complex setup in terms of its democratic operations. So, but I do hope through the National Spatial Development Framework, we will be able then to define what is a city, and then obviously look into what is a tier 1 and a tier 2 municipality. Your tier 1 municipality is your typical Swakopmund and Walfish Bay. Your tier 2 municipalities like your Tsumeb and Grootfontein and all that. Maybe we need to look into it, and we perhaps need some review, but I know there was some review done in the Local Authorities Act. I think there is some changes, which they also moved away. I think there won't be any more settlements or just village councils, but I'm speaking under corrections on that. So, but we will definitely touch base on it, as we're also equally going to unpack the spatial development framework.
Yeah.
Now, yes, this is some serious aspects here, but it's always good to look into the data and what the data is truly saying. Now, in terms of our transaction volumes here, and remember to our listeners, when we give data, we give a 10-year perspective aggregated data on the property market.
Yeah.
So property market, you cannot look at it from a 1-year perspective or 2 years. The longer you take it, the better you understand what the projections are going to look like. Now, with the city of Windhoek, our transaction volumes are sitting at 14,477.
Okay.
That is our transaction volumes. Now, over the period of 10 years, our aggregated median house price over a period of 10 years. So we need to look at, and I know I think it was F&B, I think it's sitting at 1.4, 1.7, the median house price now.
Yeah.
So now when you start aggregating this over 10 years, so you will then be able to work out the percentage to say you then deduct the 873,000, you minus it by from 1.7 million is at 1.4, and then you basically get the difference.
Okay.
So you then get what is the change in percentage over a period of 10 years. Now, once you understand this data, you can then see what is the trajectory, and you will then be able to see that in the next 10 years, what will be the house price be. So now that calculations, we will have it in our articles coming out on Wednesday. So we will have that in our article on Eagle F on the village. So stay tuned to that, where we give you the full calculations. Now, when you start looking at this as a young person, you should then be able to say, yes, I'm in my first level of entry of a job now. So what is a strategic decision that I need to make by the time in 10 years time I somehow already participating in the property space, not to feel the effect after 10 years. So that's why the best time to make an investment is not tomorrow, but it's today.
Yeah.
Now, the aggregated value of the entire 10 years perspective, we are looking at 18.9 billion.
18.9. Okay.
Yeah, 18.9 billion. This is now bumper numbers.
Yeah.
This is double fold of what Swakopmund has produced. So that means that the capital city is the capital city. It's double fold. So meaning, so the transaction volumes are quite high. But you will see that the average median prices are over a decade between Swakopmund and Windhoek. It's neck to neck. Yeah, it's neck to neck. And when you look at now the property market I was looking at the development close to the waterfront in Swakopmund, a 3-bedroom unit with beach view of an average size of around about 200 square meters, going for 8 million.
8 million.
Yeah, 8 million.
Okay.
So things are going a bit crazy now up in the coast. But man, it is the demands, is the preference. That is where money wants to settle.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is, old money is what we say, old money. When you want to look at where old money wants to settle, look at the apartments along the beach, and it's becoming critical and it's becoming prime.
Yeah.
That's where basically things are moving towards to. Now, when you look at over and at the aggregated 10 years, and you also want to assess what is the suburb that has really stood out in terms of trying to push those volumes, basically your Katutura market is the most lucrative market because it's been pushing some serious volumes out of this over a period of 10 years, where over a period when you're aggregating it, pushing around about 467,000. Now, there's something that you need to keep in mind, and I always talk about the subsidized market, which is always being misunderstood by professionals and so forth, where we always say it's market value less. And I think Dr. Mwinga really gave a good caption on that because he understands the concept of the input what government is doing. Now, these properties that are selling for an aggregated value of 467,000, that basically means that it's the input from government, when those built together properties, when they started getting onto the market, that's the average prices they were sending. Those containers, your Hakahana, your Kuriangava, those spaces. And that is where it basically comes from. Now you need to see that who created that market. That market was created by government, which they, through the Build Together program. Now your suburbs, like for instance Hakahana, it means we need to hurry up. It is because now, when after the dawn of independence, something drastically needed to happen, and Libertina Mandela needed to respond fast to accommodate the comrades that are coming to the city, the influx. It was a bit just overwhelming because everyone wanted to be part of this new dawn of democracy. So what then basically happened, they created these Kuriangava, Hakahana spaces and Korea Hub so that they are able to accommodate a lot of people in the lower segment, especially those that start working in government. So people needed to have places to live, and they created these land parcels. Now you must remember that our legislation, our policy is basically, it's very restrictive on single residential, because what is required is for you, for a freestanding house needs to be 300 square meters. But Libertina Mandela got it right, and they created 250, 222 land parcel in those areas of Hakahana under the Build Together program and the container development. So there was a lot of movement. Now you see, when at some point when it was then created, 10, 15 years, 20 years later, and this properties now got onto the market, a lot of people start retiring, the city became expensive, and economic hardship starts hitting, and a lot of people wanted to retreat back then to the northern areas and so forth. And it's also an area after 20 years of the dawn, that is where we see escalated numbers in terms of people that are retiring. So, and again, this is, as I said, we want to educate the masses. We need to understand what the Build Together projects means. Believe me, without the Build Together projects, the property market would have been worse than what it's ever.
Really?
So I'm not trying to tell people that government is doing a good job into controlling the market, but they are putting that investment into the market just to lower, for that we do not have a runaway market value aspect in terms of that the market is going out when people won't be able to afford. So that critical part, the Build Together project. So listeners, you need to come into the space, and we need to educate each other what really means towards the market value. If any local authority doesn't have a subsidized market or a Build Together market, that market is going to run, and the property market, the affordability bracket will even going to be pushed much harder. So again, the government is really also putting some capital injections for people, so basically to have a moderate growth of the property market.
Okay.
But I think government needs to do more, because through Ulwazi data, we are able to see that what are the effects of this, of what the government is injecting. And these are the critical things that we need to unpack and to start appreciating the Build Together project. So we need for the Build Together project to come out more, and we need to invest more money into that space. Yeah. Now, we, especially in Windhoek, we do have a sub-market that is very concentrated in terms of competitiveness and basically on affordability.
Okay.
So meaning that in our rate of delivery, land delivery in the city of Windhoek, based on its growth, on an average, it's below par.
Yeah,
it's below par, and we need to come out. Much stronger into that space. Now, basically, for us to be able to unpack this, to better understand as to what the market really constitute and where the subsidized market is basically coming from, it's basically your NHE and your government,
okay,
and the input from government. These are the two entities that is really trying to control the market to make sure that it's not growing on a fast pace. So we need to keep in mind as we move forward, this is purely new information, NHE and your Build Together program, what it means for the property market.
Okay.
So those are the inputs that government is doing, and they are pushing very hard. You will see now what NHE is currently doing. They are really unlocking a lot of properties now, and they are very aggressive on the ground. So that means that we are going to see a knock-on effect in the next coming 5 years, maybe towards the last term of Madam Daitwa, the president. So we will see that the property prices are going to be a bit stagnant based on the current work input that has been doing. So with the 350 million loan and the DBSA loan that is advanced to NHE, so they are sitting at the $1.7 billion money that they are going to inject into the market over the next 5 years.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to look at the data now and what it will be in 5 years. So there's some positive aspects there. Again, the Build Together program that needs to come back very quickly, and all that for us to be able to get this affordability issue. The issue is not delivery, the issue is affordability. So once government put in capital, so there's a depreciation in the market value to a certain extent. But very, very beautiful aspects that are coming in there in terms of output. Now, when we start looking at the socioeconomic factors, based on the 2023, we are just hovering close to half a million in terms of the population. When you look at what we were in 2011 and now, there's an increase of 200,000.
Yeah.
Because in 2011 we were sitting at 232,000. Now we are sitting at 486,186. So that is where we are basically looking at with an annual growth of around about 3.3% in our population, based on the NSA computed data. Now, what we then picking up, looking at the environmental position, I think the city of Windhoek is the one that is mostly sitting with a C moderated grade.
Okay.
Then the others, and with a very high potential of solar, and the rating of its rating on the solar standing is 14 out of 32. With a possible wind potential ranking between 10 out of 22. So that's why we aggregated basically to a C. We will, as we progress in the show, we will work out what is the aggregation of the environmental impact. We will do a write-up to that for our listeners, to have a better understanding. In terms of our fire pressures, the fire pressure is good over 30 kilometers. So it's also a C rating, which is it's good. It's I think we can do more. I think if we can push it to a B rating, especially for the city, it's even better. And some of these things is quite evident. We saw that what the city of Windhoek have done in terms of responding to the fire outbreak in our western sides.
Yeah.
And I mean, they really did a brilliant jobs to contain that fire. Really big ups. I know a lot of nations are currently struggling with a lot of outbreak fires, but well done to the city for that. When we need to applaud them. So we also need to celebrate our wins. We also just don't need to criticize and always saying the city of Windhoek and all that.
Yeah.
Now, coming back into the comparative analysis of the city of Windhoek, basically this is now where we're talking about the property index and what the property index then basically entails. Now, when we look at the property index over a period of around about 5 years, I could see the numbers are looking quite scary here. Basically now, what we're looking at is your subdivision, your township establishment, your zoning scheme meaning that any application that for it to go through, there needs to be an amendment to that application. Yeah, your consent applications and so forth. When we're saying consent application, is that sometimes you find yourself that you had a property and now you want to operate from home, which what we call office occupancy. So meaning that you are able to run your business from home, but only with a limited number of people, 2 to 3 people to be able to operate, so that you are able to run your business from home and to generate an income and create some employment. So that is basically what then constitute of what a consent application mostly is. There's also other aspects, but mostly when you look at the data as it's coming in, that is what is mostly for office occupancy. Now, when you look at from 2021 in terms of the number of applications that have been submitted, I said, fellow listeners, we are now dealing with our property development index. So in the near future, we are also going on the property development index. We will be adding the building plans that has been submitted over a period of years, and obviously we will then also give value to that effect. For 2021, we are looking at 84 application. While for 2022, we are sitting at 164. 2023, we are looking at 127. We experienced a dip there in 2020 and 2024, where we're sitting on 88 and 92 for 2025. While 2026, we are just 100. So that means we are 64 shy. So we are going to look at this property index data, and we are going to aggregate it and to see towards the end where we are going to sit. So meaning that we are going to give some national data on the property index. So for the whole country, once we have dealt with most of the towns. Now, what is also important here, especially on your property index, is that you will then see towards 2022, that is where your Hours Bleak, and 2021, your Rocky Crest have come onto the market. So these are all these applications that comes in and created some serious impact. And obviously you will start seeing the impact 3-4 years later. So those preparations, irrespective of those lower numbers. But then again, as much as the 2021 is the recorded the lowest, but it is one of the highest in terms of township establishments, that looking at almost 10 townships that came onto the market. So and that is where basically the game changer is. Once your township establishments numbers are high, that is where we're thinking. And then obviously then 2024, also 12 township establishments that came onto the market.
What constitutes as a township? What counts as a township?
Yeah, a township basically it's a township. It's anything from 11 land parcels that basically then constitute as a townships. And then obviously with a maximum where most people looking do is 350 land parcels. Now the 350 land parcels is basically dictated because there's a booklet at the registry book at the deeds office. One booklet has 350 pages when you are recording. So, and that is basically where people now thought there's a perception that a township needs to be 350 land parcels. So, but there have been a debate around that. We've moved away now. So, because you can even submit up to 1,000, an extension with 1,000 land parcels. Because there's nothing that really is on paper that say what is the minimum or what is the maximum or what the township could be. But this is also up for debate. I think fellow learned friends, they can come in and guide us into this process. Now, when you look at your develop index and what mostly dictates from the data what we are getting, so there's a lot of general residential applications that came through. The office bulk in the office policy area was 0.4. And then obviously we are also then looking into some institutional applications. Those are the predominant. But for our listener, if you really want this data, the Ulwazi database is open. Please look for Ulwazi Africa online. Go onto it. Your TNCs apply and make sure that you have proper informed data that you can look at for your specific town that you want to. Now, coming back now to the real Makoya, the 14,477 transaction with an 18.9 billion market value. It's a serious monster. It's the capital city, and it's sitting with some real numbers, real drivers on this space. Now, when you look at, as I said, when you look at this data on basically what we analyze, we look at the top 6 highest performance suburbs or in an area in terms of transactions, so that we just have a perspective of what is happening in the capital city. Now, when you look at the as I said, Katutura remains critical. Now, people will always say but now why is Katutura? The broader perspective of Katutura, it also brings in Ongos and all those spaces. Now, when Ongos got into the market in 2019 or 2020, I think they registered close to between 15 to 20,000 land parcels. That's what they brought onto the market. And you will always see when you look at your land delivery data between 2019 and 2021, it's where we're really having some serious numbers that have shoot. It's because of Ongos. Now, I always say that every region need an Ongos time, But for the other region, we can just push numbers to 10,000, especially your Swakop. Erongo needs a 20,000 collectively between Swakopmund, Wolfish Bay, and the mining activity. So they need a proper injection. They need to the regional council needs to set a target to say on land delivery, we are looking at 20,000 land parcels over a period of 5 years. It will make a huge change, The economy will start looking different in that space. Now, when you look at the aggregated aspects of the transactions in Katutura, we are looking at between 610, yeah, with an average price of 467,000. So I kept on saying, guys, we need to look at what has been the cost, what has created this impact, and there's a government input, and those properties are coming on stock now. But now, when you look at in terms of, yes, it's small and it's affordable, but when you look at the average price per square meter, it's far much higher than what you are going to pay in Ouwasblik.
It's higher in Katutura than in Ouwasblik?
Yes, because Katutura is fetching 1,523 per square meter, while your current Ouwasblik now is pushing at 1,200 per square meter. There's a new development also coming up especially that is on the market now, and they are registering some serious sales where you put up a 50,000 deposit on Anna Street. Basically between Ludwig and Klein Windhoek, there's a new development. They have like round about 186 land parcel. It's hot, it's on the market. You just need to put down your 50,000 deposit and you can reserve. Now the beautiful thing of this, when you go for those property and you put down your 50,000, so that means now basically you have a grace period of round about 2 years to see how you're going to raise that million. For you to be able then to afford. But I would then say that anyone out there that needs to buy these properties, it is on the market. I think it's a beautiful estate that is coming out there, very, very much exclusive. It's only looking at 186. The access, only 2 accesses, it means that you can control the crime. Once you control access, we have a control access, so meaning that you have a choke point. So if you press your panic button in your property, the security cluster can respond quickly and to be able to assess you in that space. So that is basically now for Katutura. Then obviously we also then on our second on the menu is basically now Kuriangava is Kuriangava, where the transaction sales over a period of 10 years it's hitting 580 with a medium of 826,000. You see now Kuriangava is a bit slightly up. Your properties are a bit more expensive and all that. It's more your energy effect that is also then coming in here, because they were the biggest developer around Kuriangava, with also pushing a very high square meter price per average. So maybe just to come back, for the square meter price that I gave for Ouwasblik is for vacant land, and what I gave for Katutura is with a top structure. Maybe just need to do that distinction, so that there's an understanding. But obviously now, when you put up the top structure in Ouwasblik, obviously the number starts to look different. You so start going to hit around about 5,000 to 6,000 per square meter.
Okay,
and that's why it's so expensive. Now the same thing applies here in Kuriangava. This is purely a good measure between Kuriangava and Katutura. So that is basically now you are now getting around about your average price is 2,845 per square meters, with an average land size of 275 square meters. So what you basically have here, you slightly have bigger land parcels in Katutura, where in Kuriangava it's much more smaller, but obviously modern infrastructure. Now, thought in the menu, you're looking at, Chomise. Chomise is pushing 563 with an average price of 750,000 and a price per square meter is 1,800. Now, Ochomise, it was predominantly, we have a double mixture here. We see those apartments that have been developed on a mass scale as well, and then also the freestanding property. So it got a bit of a mix, and that's why when we say that, when we look into our development, our property development index, we saw general residential that is coming in strong. I think maybe the biggest mistake around the Chomiso and the sectional titles, it's probably some of the sectional titles, the zoning the zoning there is business. I don't know how far the city of Windhoek went, because what developers do, they do a zoning, they take a business zoning application so that they can improve the number of units that basically needs to be built. So that correction, there's a couple of developments around Groove Mall is also the same thing. But if you find yourself in that situation, please, I'm urging all our listeners, if you are buying a property, especially sectional title, just make sure that your zoning is proper. If your zoning is business, your rate and taxes will then come out as business, not as residential. So basically, unless the city of Windhoek pronounce themselves to say that you pay rate and taxes on the basis of the land use. But let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Hopefully that they will be able then to address this.
So
now, yes.
Yeah. Sorry to cut you off. The over 14,000 transactions in the last 10 years at a value of over 18 billion. What can we attribute to this volume of transactions and this valuation? Is it purely just urbanization, or what's behind this large number?
Yeah, it's urbanization, that is, and it's all the issue of supply and demand. So when the market is choke, you see, when the market is choke, when you are 23 years, you are not in a panic state. But when you find yourself somewhere at the age of 35 and you have reached a certain peak of your career or whatsoever, so your thought, you automatically or psychologically, you get into the panic mode that I need to buy a property because in 20 years' time, by the time I've finished paying it off, I'll be 55. So you start hitting that panic mode button. So once that hits now, the system gets choked. So, and then obviously now the system obviously just can take up the strongest guy who can afford property. It's no longer Nokucha, it's a democracy. It's a capitalist system. So, and that is, and the beauty of thing is we have a very modern government.
Okay.
It is a democratic state, but its behavior, it has a 20 or 30% a social behavior because it cares for the people in the lower segment.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's why we have those Build Together project and your NHE, those institutionals.
Yeah.
Because if you leave the entire market just for the market itself, it becomes very dangerous, and a lot of people will be squeezed out into the property market and will never be able to enter. But with the current state and machinery and operation, we are able to cushion that. And that is also maybe one thing that we need to also understand, that we are not 100% democratic state. Yes, in terms of democratic elections and institutional operation, yes, we are. But there's a social factor which government is carrying. Now, Namibia is one of the few countries in Africa that give pension fund to the elderly.
Okay.
Yeah. I think we are only 3 or 4 on the African continent that does that.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's why and that's why you always look at in our budget allocation, the social basket is always higher.
Yeah.
Now, for government then to do that, it means that pensioners are able to pay their rate and taxes from their social grants, and also our local authorities, big ups to them, to the leadership, especially the city of Windhoek. Every year they pronounce themselves to say that if you are above 65, you then need to come in so that you qualify for the rate and taxes for pensioners. So, and that is a very commendable activities. Again, it's the social approach that we are having. We are running a 30-70 democratic and a social state, not in a bad stance. It's just basically what government is aiding, and especially the free edge. it's probably even higher now, because now we have now free tertiary education. Our education system is now completely free, with very little input. Everyone will be able now to educate themselves, and that's a very positive thing. Despite that, now we are our budget is hard hit, but there's now a lot of kids that have now access to education, and they are now able to educate themselves and to better their life in the next. So the effect of this change, we are going to see it in the next 5 to 10 years. Now, remember when Zimbabwe became a democratic, the one thing that Mugabe focused on is on their education. And that's why you will see that at the time when we became independent, we did not have experts and all that. And we are able to benefit from those decisions which Mugabe have made, and we are able to bring in engineers, quantity surveyors, and all that.
Yeah.
Now, talking about using migrants or immigrants to come take up specialized jobs in the country, I just want to give a perspective. For you to produce a fully fledged engineer in Namibia, that you take through a primary school up to grade 12. And that is being subsidized by government. And then you take him to tertiary university. So you are spending, on an average, you could easily spend between 3 to 5 million in investing in that person until that person is registered. You're spending that entire 7 million. Now, if you get someone who already got 7 years or 10 years of experience, and you're taking him from another country, so you need to look at the cost-benefit analysis. Sometimes those issues are very critical, especially when we are in a space of development. So that you need to understand, bringing in already qualified engineer, there's a cost saving, because you have to spend in people. So we also need to appreciate, and as we've seen now what is happening in South Africa, where people are saying, the foreigners needs to leave and all that. There are benefits. Even the guy that is trading with vegetables on the street market, and he coming from this, it's an understanding that is there. And I think it's important that as Namibians, we need to understand this perspective and what impact it can have on our development. Now, what if you want to push supply, but then you do not have the right number of experts? So what do you then do? And I think that we need to keep that. And I think the government also, again, did well, especially where especially at the departments of the Ministry of Works. But now when you look at it now, the Namibians have now taken over. They've in the backdrop of our counter, especially experts coming from Zambia and Zimbabwe. Now, coming back to our data, is we are now looking into Khomasdal extension 16. Now, this Khomasdal extension 16, it's probably one of the well-developed areas, your middle class, and this is where most of our return taxes are coming from, especially your Khomasdal area. That is where the number of your middle class is, and Khomasdal, Dorado Park, Pioneers Park. Those are where the good payments are being collected. And again, the setup of the local authority is the affluent community is also equally subsidizing the lower income. So, and that's one thing, again, once you start unpacking our democratic state, in terms of, yes, the constitutional aspect is very democratic, but in operation of nature, it's very much it has a very huge social component, and we need to credit government for that, so that now doing so, the gap between the rich and the poor doesn't grow at the next how must I put it, at a very fast pace, but gradually. So it's these social baskets that are in place that are also cushioning up the gap. So the idea is we need to understand the social basket. It cuts across a lot of spheres, and how it influences eventually equally your inflation and your market. Now, Khomasdal extension 16, it came onto the market I think it was serviced around about 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
Then transactions were not happening for some time. And I think then from 2010, 2011, that is actually where the market then start picking up. So it was serviced, but for some reason transactions were not taking place. And it was also serviced with the City of Windhoek own capital injection, and big ups to them. And if you go now around extension 16, Commerce-Dal, that is where your Namcor service station is.
Yeah.
And it's also creating a new Evelyn Street, basically. Which is I think also what you call it, the prime, and that it's just very vibrant with young people in that space. Now, as I said, it's 501. We're looking at 285 with a median of with a cost price here of 559. Now you must remember this around this time why the numbers are looking at this is because at the time that's also when the auctions were happening in the City of Windhoek.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's why we are recording very low numbers in this area. So it is also the input, and as I said, the moment local authority steps in, we can feel the difference in the market value. So and that is something that we really need to appreciate. Now, with modern tools and data analytics, we are then be able to truly understand what really this means in terms of real value. Then equally so on, I think we are on number 4 now, which is a Chomise Extension 5 that also came into the market with 383. So you see there now when we spoke about the booklet that is having 350 pages. So here it just shows the extension here was designed with 383 land parcels.
Yeah.
So again, is those aspects that are coming through, with an average price going for 480. Please do take note, is an aggregated price over a period of 10 years, with an average price per square meter of 1,000, and the average earth size is sitting at 396 per square meter. Yeah, again, it's with top structure. We need to keep in mind. So when you look at the overall performance, especially in the Ochomises, 2018 it was completely flat. The effect was only experienced in 2022. It started shooting up gradually. And I said, this data is available. Give us a call, and always we will make sure that you receive this data.
So, we the data you're providing now, it sounds to me that a bulk of this 18 billion is like residential transactions.
Very much.
How much of it is what's the ratio between the residential and commercial transactions in Windhoek?
Because we've been having quite a stagnant commercial ratio, but I would put it probably at the commercial probably 5%.
5?
Yeah, 5%.
Really? So,
yeah.
Like, approximately 95% of the 18 billion is residential transactions?
Yeah, it's more residential, residential transactions.
Okay.
Yeah, it's more residential transactions. But also now, your commercial in terms of value, your commercial, you could have an industrial warehouse that could easily sell for 19 million. And 19 million, that equates in Katutura, it could equate to 20 houses.
Okay.
Yeah, so as much as the percentage ratios to numbers is 20, but when you start looking at the market value of the business parcels, it can be higher. Now, when you do a township, usually in your commercial properties, you probably in every township was 350. You're looking at maybe 3 to 4 3 to 4 commercial parcels, and then you're looking at also maybe 4 or 5 general residential, because now the design the design is basically the attitude, the Namibian attitude in terms of owning a property is the concept is very much freestanding, and that is now that we need to decolonize the mind, or to say, guys, if you have a duplex, it's also fine. If you have a townhouse, it's also fine. So we need to move into that mindset, because the freestanding, it gets very expensive. Your rate and taxes are high because of your and it's also putting a lot of pressure on the local authority to maintain the infrastructure for services. So and we need to, it's something that we on a given day that we need to unpack in that space.
So, as we wrap up here, I think we can do several more parts about Windhoek, as there's a lot to discuss. But for the other towns, when we were talking about like your Swakop, your Shakati, Ndangwa, and Ngwediva, when we were talking about the expansion of these towns and how there's this whole issue of like rezoning of what counts as the town boundary, so to say, does the same apply to Windhoek? Because every year it seems that Windhoek is expanding further and further. How much more can Windhoek expand until it's no longer considered as Windhoek? Like if we look at places like Osona, is that still part of Windhoek technically, or is that outside Windhoek?
Osona is part of Okahanja.
Okay.
Osona is part of Okahanja. The extent of the...
Or places like Omea.
Yeah.
Is that Windhoek also, or is
Omea is Windhoek. On the northern side, our boundary is somewhere there at mixed settlement.
Okay.
That is where basically our boundary for the city of Windhoek. This side, it is the areas of Groot Oop. Groot Oop and Omea, that's where basically the boundary is.
Elisenheim, is that Windhoek still?
Elisenheim is part of Windhoek.
Okay.
It's Blick, Finkenstein, Caps Farm. Yeah, that's also part of Windhoek. Now, what you generally always see is that most of the industries that wants to develop, they would always prefer to develop at the edge of a city boundary.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's a bit much cheaper. Your rate and taxes are less. So you will see in the next coming 5 years, or you can already see it on your way to Rehoboth, where the town boundary starts ending. You can see warehouses and farming industries establishing themselves.
Yeah.
Basically, they are just outside, because now you do not want to pay those high rate and taxes. You now fall into something which is farmland, and it's more got to do with the regional council. You are operating in that space, and that is where most industries basically then want to be. So and that is the reason why a lot of people prefer. And it's something that the city needs to start thinking, how you control your edge, basically. So if you're not making your rate and taxes affordable, industry will tend to always, because what you want always is to bring your operational cost low as possible. Yeah. So I've realized that we are also running a bit out of time here. And I think what we can do, we will have to extend this slot towards Monday.
Yeah, definitely.
So because there's still a lot of data that we haven't covered, so that we are able to unpack the city of Windhoek. It's a big monster, but we are, as I said, we are only really touching the surface. There's a lot to discuss. There's still the rental market analysis, the commercial market analysis. We could, but we will make sure that we will do justice to it on Monday, and so that we are able to unpack it.
100%. Okay, we had There's a question online, but I think it's for the city of Windhoek. It's not one we can answer. They said the city of Windhoek cut off the toilet water of Greenwell, Hilda Street side. Why? So maybe that's
Yeah,
that's
I think that is more. But perhaps what we can do is that the listener can just post that on the City of Windhoek social media page. I think they usually respond to such issues, and I'm sure you can get some assistance. Even ourselves, we will also load it on the City of Windhoek's page, and then you can just have a look at it, especially on LinkedIn and on Facebook. And hopefully that they will respond.
100%. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another great edition of Ulwazi with our wonderful Mr. Francisco NESHILA as per usual. We will be back on Monday at 4 p.m. I think we'll continue this Windhoek discussion. As he said, there are many layers still left to unpack. So once again, if you missed any past edition of Ulwazi, you can always catch them on the Eagle FM website and the mobile application. In the podcast section, simply type in Ulwazi and you'll be able to access all the great information that we have provided for you thus far. All right, we will see you guys again on Monday, 4 p.m. We'll continue this Windhoek discussion.
Cheers.
Eagle FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud.
Not a fraud, it's a scandal.
Scandal.
Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You the person that does not have a capacity to build.